And you're live.
All right. Hi, everyone. We are calling to order a special meeting today, Monday, October 11th. The purpose of this meeting primarily is to work on business related to the search for a new library board director. We start with taking attendance.
Okay, we're going to do that, but I'd first like to make the comment that if members of the public wish to make a public comment, they may be left on the YouTube chat or email us at ask@aadl.org or leave a voicemail message at 734-327-4245. And all comments received will be read at the end of this meeting, and attendance has been taken.
Thank you, Karen. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Thanks, Corrine. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Dharma, thank you. And then any discussion of the agenda? Right, seeing none, we will take a roll call vote.
All right, Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
and Trustee Vanderbroek.
Yes.
I believe that means the motion passes. Thank you. So we've approved our agenda, which moves us into new business. So in thinking back to our meeting last, when we discussed that the current executive committee, which is me, Corrine, and Dharma, would essentially serve as the search committee. We realized after that meeting that this search is going to last probably very likely beyond the end of the calendar year, which means that in January we will be electing new executive officers. Of the three officers that are formed of the executive committee, I'm the only one that can maintain office if we vote in that direction. Corrine and Dharma would have to change offices. Anna can continue if she wanted to, or we elected her in her office. But then none of that will be decided until we reach the new term and we take a new vote on that. So what I am recommending that we do for the sake of continuity to move us through the search is that we actually do pass a resolution tonight that establishes a search committee that is comprised of me, Dharma, and Corrine. And we can read that resolution now. Would someone be willing to read this for us? That's on, I think, page 5 of our packet, or the 5th page of the PDF.
I can do it.
Thanks.
The board resolves as follows. 1, that the library director search special committee consists of Jim Leha, chairperson, Dharma Ackman, and S. Corrine Moore. 2, that the charge to the library director search special committee is to act as a steering group for the process of hiring a library director, that the committee completes any preliminary work with a search firm as engaged by the Board of Trustees, that the committee remains in effect to June 30th, 2022, or as such date prior that a candidate has been formally engaged. 3, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
Thank you, Molly. Can I hear a motion to pass this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Corrine. Second.
Seconded.
Thank you, Jamie. Discussion.
I was just thinking about this. Good thinking.
Well, I'm going to give credit where credit is due to Josie, who said, you might want to think about that, and taking us back to our bylaws. So thanks to Josie. And I will just reiterate what we have all said and I have said before, which is that this is a very open process, both because we are a highly transparent group in spirit and in law. So hopefully no worries here. Any further discussion?
Do you all want to be on the search committee from now until such time as we engage a new director?
Yeah. Sounds
I mean, I think the continuity argument just makes a lot of sense for the whole process. So I can't really see a justification to disrupt that midway through.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, but also, I mean, if it is a 3 to 4 month process, then, you know, it will only be a little bit past when you leave your positions if you know, switch out.
Hopefully, if we stay on task here, that's right. And the committee would only be in effect until the end of the fiscal year is essentially what this is establishing. Any further thoughts? All right. I guess we will take a vote then.
Trustee Ackman,
yes.
trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
trustee Leha,
Yes.
trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Solomon,
Yes.
trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Great. Thanks all. Resolution passes. Moving us on to our discussion of interview protocols. We need to move a little bit quickly here. Hopefully you've come with some ideas. What I think we should try to get to is maybe we have about 30 minutes each with these candidates. It's probably 3 or 4 questions that we are going to ask each of them. For my part, I think based on our conversation last time, I would propose a question about, you know, how do you think about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism in the context of your search work? And what are some of the strategies that you deploy to ensure that we'll see a diverse group of candidates? What are other questions that people would like to probe on?
That was,
Oh, who's talking? Sorry. I'll go ahead since I'm the only one unmuted right now. I'll be fast. One that I came up with was, what is your approach to understanding the unique needs for filling the position? They both talked that they do that in their proposals, but I'd like to hear more about how they do that.
Yeah, to build on that, I think, you know, specifically, I'd be interested in how they engage with the staff around what they're looking for.
Yeah, actually, and tied into that is one thing that I noticed in conducting the reference interviews is that they differ in that area. So like, I think what they expect of us, what they need from us to bring to the table, or how they expect to interact with us is would be helpful to know.
And following on to that, I guess I'd like to know, like, what stakeholders do they think are important to engage? Because I think that was also, now that you say that, Jamie, a difference. Like, there's a lot of different potential stakeholders in this. There's the board. You mentioned staff. One could imagine patrons, other potential groups. And so I would also like to hear about that.
I think we should do our best to, you know, ask each of them the same questions so that one doesn't, you know, get the opportunity to chime in on something that the other doesn't. So
It looks like the chat is active, so I am going to write these questions into the chat and we can use that as a script. And who else would like to weigh in? Molly?
Yeah, and I don't know if we have to use this one, but I would like to maybe ask something about how they see the AADL, like what they perceive to be, I don't know, strengths, challenges, uniquenesses. I would imagine that they've been doing their research already, and I want to understand how they see this institution.
Great. Scott, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what I can add. The things I came with were in the same vein of the question about stakeholders, like who are the stakeholders that we, that are important to engage in how, which included the staff in particular, and the approach to kind of bringing a diverse pool of candidates. And yeah, those are the two biggest ones. I don't have one to add.
Okay.
I do like Molly's question of like how do they perceive ADL? How are they going to talk about ADL? And what should AADL be looking for?
I also had one more thing, which was sort of asking them like, what don't we know? What do we not know that we don't know? Kind of thing. Like, the reason we're hiring them is because we're a volunteer board that has not gone through this before. So like, what are the things that we need to understand, or that they can hold our hand through? Kind of just saying like, okay, what are you bringing that we really need that we might not know what to even ask?
What do we need to know that we don't need? We know we need to know.
What are the known unknowns?
Okay, give me a second.
I was very articulate in trying to say that.
So I think the first question in chat was supposed to include DEI. How do DEI and anti-racism?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It was missing. I read it, but that's what I thought it meant.
That is correct.
I was wondering just if we could and because that's almost exactly what I put your first question and an idea that I brought here, but I also added in diverse group of excellent candidates, because I'm also I think you could just tie in the fact that we want like an excellent pool, and that would be an opportunity to put that in there too.
Okay, let me revise this. Oh, hold on one second.
Sorry, I forgot it's
Oh,
your
no.
scratch pad.
How do DEI and racism inform research process? You said a diverse group of excellent candidates. Is that what you said, Dharma? Yeah. Okay. Here, my friends, are your assignments. Scott, you can be 1. Molly, you can be 2. Anna, you can be 3. Kareen, you can be 4. And who doesn't have one yet? Jamie, you can be 5. And I think that means Dharma and I don't have one, right? Okay, so Dharma and I are going to be timekeepers. Is everyone clear on their assignment?
And in what sense are you keeping time? Just like basically trying to equally divide the people we talk to, or?
Yes, and so what I would say, we want to get, we have 30 minutes whenever we start here. We also want to probably leave 5-6 minutes at the end for them to talk to us. Like 1 or 2 questions that you might have. And if we're going to stay on time, we need to start with June around 7:50. Okay.
Okay.
So tell me your order again. 1 is Scott. 2 is Molly. 3 is Anna. 4 is Kareen. No, right? 4 is Kareen, and 5 is Jamie. All right. Everybody ready? Great. Well, we can welcome Bradbury Miller into the room if they're here. Hello. Hi, Brian.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for joining us tonight. Karen and I spoke on the phone as part of the screening process. It's nice to see you.
Same.
And why don't we have everyone in our group just quickly go around and introduce themselves, and if they are an officer, they can tell you who they are, and then you can do that for us. And then we have about 30 minutes with you. We've got about 4 or 5 questions, and then we'll try to leave a little time at the end for you to talk back to us with questions. So I'm Jim Leha. I'm currently the president of the Ann Arbor District Library Board of Trustees. This is my 6th year, 2nd term with the board. Shall we go alphabetical after that? That would go Dharma next, I think.
Hi there, I'm Dharma Ackman. This is my first term on the board. I think I'm heading into my 4th. This is my 4th year. Is this my 4th year? Wow, time flies. Hello.
I think that means Kareen is next.
Okay, I am Kareen. I am the vice chair of the board, and I am also, I guess, my 4th year. Is it really? This is so, yeah, unexpected. I guess COVID makes time fly.
And I'm sorry I skipped Molly. Molly, you're next.
All right. Hi, I'm Molly Kleinman. I am I guess it's been about a year and a half on the board. I was elected in the last election, and I was appointed right at the start of the pandemic.
Perfect. And then Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Solomon. This is my 1st year. I'm not even 1 year in, so I'm pretty new to all of this, and I'm the secretary of the board.
Scott.
I'm Scott Trudeau, also newly elected as of the last election. Not on the board yet.
And Jamie.
Hi, I'm Jamie Vanderbrook. I was appointed in 2015, and then I subsequently ran for 2 different terms. So I'm in the middle, or just getting into my 2nd term. Nice to meet you all.
Also on the call is Josie, who you can't see, Josie Parker, our director, Eli Nyberger, deputy director, and Karen Wilson, who's our executive assistant. Welcome, Karen and Brian. Please tell us who you are.
Happy to. Thank you for inviting us, first of all. We're really excited to be here. I'm Karen Miller, and I am the president and owner of Bradbury Miller Associates as of January 2020. So also pandemic driven. It's a strange time to take over a business, but hey, you do what you can do. Our firm's been around since 1983 in different iterations. I'm the most recent owner. I've been doing this work for the last 8.5 years. So our previous owner, Dan and Beth Bradbury, who have just stepped away. Dan stepped away last year. Beth just finished her last search a couple months ago, less than a couple months ago, like 1 month ago. And so again, we're a firm in transition, but we've got years of experience behind us, and Dan and Beth are still available if they want to crawl out of retirement and stop having fun and work some more. They're available. And then we have Brian, who I'm going to let him introduce himself as well. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my background afterward.
Hi guys, my name is Brian Hare. I'm obviously newer to the firm, going on almost 8 months. I've been in libraries 15 plus years, mostly administration, various size libraries, small, rural, outside of Cleveland as well, one of the suburbs there, and mostly in management roles. I'm a strategic planning nerd, and I am really excited to be here and talking to you all about your next director.
We both are. My background is also in Ohio public libraries primarily. So I've got 25 years or so in directorship and administration. So I've been director of a couple of the smaller libraries here in Ohio, and then part of the administration for a suburban library system in Southwest Ohio, and then came back this direction to Canton to be part of one of our smaller metros for about 7 years before taking on the consulting work, which has been a wonderful opportunity. I really feel like my work in both rural and metro and everything in between has been beneficial for our clients. And I certainly enjoy the people aspect of our work. And so it's always fun to meet new people, see what you're interested in, and so on and so forth. So I'll leave it at that, but it's nice to meet all of you and to have an opportunity to talk to you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks to you both. We're going to kick off our questions, and I think we start with Scott.
Yep. So our first question is, how do diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism inform your search process? And how will you ensure that we see a diverse group of excellent candidates?
A great question and a tough question. So when I talked to Jim a little bit about this during our phone conversation, I told him that I always feel like I have a hard time answering this question because it's a huge one. And when I think about EDI and the aspects of trying to create a search process that is as equitable as possible, I feel like you're looking at every single piece of the work that we do. So we're talking about how we recruit, what we offer, what kind of advice we give you in terms of recommendations for minimum requirements, those kinds of things. I really and truly feel like it's something you have to kind of come at from every single aspect of the search process. The other issue that you encounter is that our profession is very white and it is very female dominated. So we don't have a ton of diversity to rely on. I mean, it's 80% women, it is 85% white. And when you take all of that into consideration, you would think that we would see a lot more female directors, but the most recent statistics I can find is that the director positions are dominated about 80% men. So none of it's great, right? But we really want to work on trying to fix it systemically. I feel like I'm talking around your question, and I'm not trying to. I tend to go in tangents because there's so much to think about. But in all reality, we work very hard to find diverse candidates for you. We think it's really important to have a diverse pool of candidates. It's just that there are, the hard part is that right now our profession is just not very well equipped to find, multitudes of candidates. But if you're willing to look at, if you're willing to be flexible about requirements and degrees and all of those other things, that can help. But, that affects other things. It can really demoralize the staff if they feel like the degree's not prioritized. It's complicated. Okay, so the point is, I'm going to try to get direct here. We will work very hard to find diverse candidates for you. We know where to find them. We know that they're mostly in larger urban library systems. We've had some success in finding diverse candidates, especially in the last few years, and I'm very glad to see that. Anytime we encounter a candidate that is from a minority group, I'm certainly, I want to help them succeed, and I've been looking for opportunities for us to help in a variety of ways. I'm going to stop and ask if I've even come close to answering your question, Scott.
It's a question from the whole board, but we worked on these together. But yes, I think we do have a timekeeper. So if there's anything else you want to say on the topic, we will ring the bell, I think, when we hit the.
I think the only thing I'll say, I know, from like one specific thing we do is we do focus our postings on the minority caucuses with the ALA. I mean, that's, our job postings go to as many targeted places as we can. And certainly we're willing to work with you all if you're aware of others, but that's one of the more tangible things I think that we try to do, as well as just sort of being personally committed to it.
Thank you for being succinct, Brian. Appreciate it.
I have the next question. So how do you engage with the staff in the search process, and what other stakeholders do you think are important to engage?
This is where I think we try to be just as flexible as possible. If you find that, so every board, every library tends to prioritize different things. If you're prioritizing feedback and input, where I would like to see you do that is at the very beginning of the process and at the very end of the process. So where I like to see it is lots of opportunity for people to have input on qualities, expectations, what you're looking for in terms of like the theoretical person for the next person for the job. Give lots of opportunity to people on staff, on stakeholder groups. I know you have a friends group. We certainly would want to include them if you're interested in including them. And if you want to have any kind of feedback from the community, we're happy to do that. We do a combination of feedback surveys as well as, and they're online surveys, so they're pretty easy to get to. And then also focus groups that we do over Zoom. We have a pretty good methodology for gathering that information, and we use all of it to kind of put toward the drafting of the announcement. So we wanted to reflect your community and your desires and your interests. So the more feedback we can gather, the happier we are. However, we also know sometimes boards are more focused on trying to get things moving. So we try to just be flexible. At the end of the process, where I like to see the most input is with the finalists. This is where it can get a little bit more public facing. You can invite staff to participate in Q&A sessions. We try to manage things in a way that make them very controlled, only because it's an interview process and we don't want you to get into any kind of hot water accidentally. So we do try to maintain a modicum of control over the process, but we try to give as much flexibility as possible from there too. But we like to have staff involved in that. We like to have stakeholders involved. And what we typically see are, maybe you do a public presentation where anybody can attend. We do a lot of those virtually now, simply because of the pandemic. We don't want to, cause a problem in terms of health-wise, but we certainly want to give you as many opportunities to have as broad an audience as possible to get to know your finalists. And then you can make a decision based on your feedback, because we provide a feedback mechanism for anybody who would have any kind of interaction with them. And I'll stop there in case you have any follow-up questions. Good? Good. I'm trying not to be so verbose.
Does anybody else have follow-up questions, or should I jump in? The next question kind of leads into this, is related. So the next question is, what can we expect? What are you going to expect from us as a board in this process?
That is a great question. One of the things that we try to do is make it as easy as possible for you to do the hard work of deciding who of your candidates makes the most sense for you, but we'll give you as much guidance and as much advice as you're willing to take from us. But we really and truly try to be flexible based on what your needs are. So it's not so much that we look for something from you, we look for you to tell us what your needs are so that we can match them. So if you want a lot of, so for example, when it comes to reviewing candidates, one thing we can do is we can be as hands-on about how much input you want from us on the candidate pool at the beginning of the process, versus if you really want to have an opportunity, we'll always give you all of the candidate document information, but we can give you as much advice. So if you want to just focus in on the strongest candidates, we'll tell you which ones we think are the strongest. But at the same time, you'll have access to all of it, so that if you feel strongly that you want to have more access and you want to know who else has applied other than just a slate of candidates, you'll have that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we try to be as flexible as possible to meet your needs, not necessarily look for you to tell me what I need from you.
What do you perceive about AADL? Our strengths, weaknesses, challenges? What might we be looking for?
Gosh. Well,
I think I was supposed to take that one, right?
yeah, go ahead, Brian, you start.
Well, I mean, obviously you guys are highly regarded in the nation. We know that. And that's exciting for us, certainly. You know, obviously you guys had really great, successful building campaigns in the suburbs, and unfortunately a very difficult campaign on downtown. I mean, that was pretty difficult kind of to read about, but obviously that's, you know, a factor as well. I saw that Jamie joined because of that unsuccessful attempt, and that was really noble and very cool to see that, you know, you guys, obviously Jamie, but all of you care enough to give your personal time for your local library, which is huge. And so obviously, since you guys are engaged, you know, about why the library is an important place in your community. And we know that it's a highly engaged community as well. I mean, I don't know if you're going to ask us about Ann Arbor itself, but, you know, this will certainly be a highly visible process. And, you know, and the public deserves that opportunity to have some input and say who's, you know, running. You know, you guys obviously decide who's running the library, but we want them to feel like they have some buy-in as well. So, you know, as far as strengths and weaknesses goes, a lot of strengths for sure. Obviously, you know, having a engaged board with a healthy budget and a great community, that's a lot of upshot. You know, weaknesses wise, I mean, obviously you've got the building and what you want to do with that and what you can do with that. And I think we try to know all this stuff so that we can help you guys navigate that and not necessarily shy away from it too, right? Because it's not a hidden thing. It's a very public and great thing you guys are doing. So that was my say.
Thank you, Brian. Well, and I'll also say you have a wonderful national reputation. Josie does as well. Certainly your community, I've always had my eye on. I know we're in Ohio, but I mean, you're kind of, you're like the more metropolitan version of Yellow Springs to me. So in Ohio, we have this wonderful little diverse oasis, in my opinion, in terms of Yellow Springs, which is an area where I used to live near. And I feel like your college is a little bigger, and it's a bigger city, obviously, but it's sort of that same kind of your destination. And it's something I've always appreciated about Ann Arbor, and I don't know, you have a lot of wealth in terms of, you have a diverse community, but you also have some economic diversity that I was reading about, like you're the 8th most economically diverse community, metropolitan area in the country. Is that correct? Or is that old news? But like we were just, you know, we've been trying to kind of get a sense of where your priorities are going to lie, but we also like to take the time to learn from you also. So your strengths and your weaknesses, you know.
TBD.
Yeah.
Oh, I did also learn Josie has horses. So I'm pretty sure I got that one.
Good one, Brian.
Fun facts. Those are fun facts.
And she's very proud of them. Who is next? Who's number 5?
think it's Jamie, right?
Me. I was like suddenly panicked that it wasn't my turn, but also I start crying, of course.
Oh.
Definitely knows it's my turn, so she's gonna start screaming. I'll do my best. Okay. What do we need to know that we don't know we need to know? So it's a little bit Rumsfeldian, I guess. How, and I can say that again if you want. How do you educate us about the process? So what do we need to know that we don't know we need to know, since we're new to this process, I guess?
Another great question. Let's see. We will probably inundate you with information if you want to know the truth, if you decide to go with us. We are big communicators. I try not to be as loquacious as I seem to be doing tonight or circular, but we try to make sure that you know what you need to know as soon as advance as possible. The first thing that we will want to do with you if you choose us is to set a timeline, and we're going to stick to those dates. We're pretty hardcore about it because we know how tight our schedule gets as time passes, so we want to lock in the dates on your schedule that work for you right up front. So, but doing that, we will walk you through the process in detail so that you have a sense of what to expect. And we're going to keep reminding you the whole way through. Okay, this is the part where we do this, and what you may not remember this, but that's okay because we're going to tell you again. And we'll just keep reminding you of where we are in the process, what we need, and encouraging you to give us your feedback, because we're going to ask for it a number of times along the way. We'll ask you for feedback on the announcement. We want your approval. We are going to ask you for feedback on every step of this process, really, and welcome it. We want your feedback. And if you think that we're missing something or have overlooked something or we're going too fast or any of those things, just tell us and we'll happily we'll adjust to what you need. And certainly toward the end there, especially if it feels like things are moving too fast or you're uncomfortable, or if there's any point along this process where you feel like, this isn't going the direction I was expecting or wanting, we are so willing to take a step back and say, okay, well, let's see what has to happen instead. Like, do you feel like you haven't got enough information? We've had times when people have said, we would just want another round of interviews. Okay, no problem, because there's no point in trying to push you to an artificial deadline that ends up making you either settle or uncomfortable or whatever. And so like, we're very committed to that, to making sure that you are getting what you need from us. So Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. That's a great answer.
Very nice of you to say.
We've kind of pulled through that's really helpful because it gives us a sense of the process. And we've pulled through our questions, and I had a couple kind of more, I guess one is sort of a question about your style and sort of how we differentiate you. So I'm going to ask that question second. The first question is, I can't remember, but in terms of like looking at sort of a formal contract, do you have an sort of an exclusivity clause in what you do, as in like you've placed someone at a library in California and you're not allowed to touch them as a candidate for some period of time? Is that something that circulates in the library search world?
We don't have a specific clause, but it is from an ethical standpoint, we would never feel comfortable recruiting someone that we've placed. There comes a point where maybe someone's been in a job 7-8 years, and if they come to us and say I'm interested in another position, I can't prevent someone from applying. Let's put it that way. That would also not be ethical. But I certainly don't think it would be ethical to start recruiting someone that we've placed anytime recently. So I tend to look at it as I've been doing the work for 8.5 years. There's been a few times when we've seen people come in as candidates that have been previously placed elsewhere, but I don't actively seek them out, except for specifically for nominations for the position. I will ask them if they have anyone they recommend, but I will not ask them to consider applying.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And then the other question is about, we looked at 3 proposals. We're interviewing you and another firm tonight. How would you sort of differentiate yourself as a consultancy out there doing this kind of work?
Well, I think that where our heart lies is in doing an excellent job and giving you as much support as you need without ramming you through a process and like the one way that we think is best. I mean, I know I've said the word flexible like 90,000 times tonight, but it is a word that I think that we rely on heavily to kind of demonstrate like what we have to offer. I really do feel as if that's something that we provide you. Like if you need, there are some boards that really need a lot of handholding, and I'm happy to provide that. And there are some that really don't, and that's fine too. So we just try to kind of figure out what you need early up front as soon as possible so that we can provide it to you without having to ask all the time. So I do think that we're very committed to that. We're very committed to finding candidates of quality. I really enjoy the matchmaking aspect of this work. And it is, you know, like it's really about like we listen very carefully to what you have to say. And then we think about who do we know out there that kind of embodies those things. And if we don't know, then we reach out to a lot of people. But in the meantime, when we're interviewing people as the process continues, I'm continuously keeping those thoughts in my head as to, okay, well, are they showing that they're an innovative person? What kind of vision do they have? There are some things I look for in every candidate, but there are some things that I'm going to look for just specifically for your position. And I think that that's what we bring to the table.
Brian?
I would add that we're the hungriest.
I don't know. There's some others out there giving you a run for your money, I can tell you.
He's hungry.
We're very hungry for what we do and love this. So and I think that hunger then kind of translates to, you know, what your results are, hopefully.
Right.
I will say this, we would love to get the opportunity to work with you specifically. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't necessarily say that to every single board that I encounter, but you all are very intriguing and interesting to us. And I think you have a really great library system. Josie's done a fantastic job. And I'm not just saying that because she's listening. Just kidding. But like truly, you're a unique situation. You're definitely the kind of people we would love to work with. And I just say that kind of just because I love your community and
thank you.
I think you're great.
Yes, I mean you could turn down this business if you wanted to.
We have a lot going on.
Yeah, I know. I gathered that from when we talked to you. We had a great call, and I want to turn it back to you all now for you know, any kind of additional follow-up questions that you might want to ask to any of us.
Well, I think my first question, and I'll give Brian a chance here in a second, I promise. My first question would be, what are you looking for out of a consultant? Like, what is it that you want to get that you think that would be, what is it that you need that you think you wouldn't be able to do on your own?
I can jump in and just say, you know, one of the strengths of this board, I think, is our diversity of backgrounds. But that also means that a lot of us, you know, have not done an executive search before. And so we have a nice, you know, diversity of outlooks. I'm a social worker, we have librarians, we have lawyers, you know, so we have a lot of different lenses to look at candidates. But I think for me, the idea of having the right people in front of us to pick from feels daunting. So that's my thought.
That's such a great reflection, Anna. Thank you. Also, you know, the majority of us are not people that are professionally a part of the library world or have been in the past. So there's this help and understanding like what that sort of culture looks like in terms of what candidates are looking for and what's going to speak to them. For my part, you know, I would say that everyone here is like a full-time working person, and you can even see some of us have kids. And I am not a parent personally, but many are. And I am just thinking about how we have very busy lives, as professionals beyond this board. And the first thing that my last day of vacation is when I was making those calls to you and others, Karen, because I was like, we got to have somebody hired as soon as possible before our very busy lives, which are often tracked onto the school year of the University of Michigan, really take off in lots of different ways. And so for me, I'm just looking for a real task-oriented, group of folks that can just project manage the heck out of this and really tell us when we need to be paying really close attention, and get us moving through the process so that we can meet our deadline.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what you think is, what is one big project coming down the pike that you think the next director is going to need to take on?
Space, the final frontier.
Yes. Space.
We have just acquired a big new warehouse that's going to open up a ton of options for us. And we also, as you mentioned, have the ongoing challenges of the downtown building. And I think those two things are at front of mind for me, at least in terms of what the next director is going to be taking on.
I would also imagine that some of the re-emerging from the pandemic. We have a very, very healthy, active public programming. We do online now, it's moving more towards a hybrid, but what does that look like and how does it roll out? I think all of that is going to be very important too.
Mm-hmm.
I would say yes, questions about building use downtown are very open-ended, especially given that we went through this long period of research trying to understand what we could potentially do with that property. And also the potential for addressing our millage issue, which has been reducing due to the Headley Act, and there are many entities that are looking for Headley overrides, and we might need to explore that idea to stabilize our budget resource as we move into the future. Building and Headley are both very political projects. They're projects that live very squarely in the sort of space between us and kind of the politics of the city more broadly.
Great.
I think we have time for one more. Oh, Dharma, do you want to jump in before?
I was just going to cut in to help you with the time. That's all.
Oh, thank you.
You're on it though.
Brian, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, but mine takes too long. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go for it, Brian. It's okay.
As briefly as you can, tell us why you've committed many years of your life to being on the public library board.
Mine's short. Mine's really short.
Go on.
This was my campaign that I just from last fall was I'm just a library super fan.
Oh, that is always nice to hear.
Me too. I totally credit libraries with being a big part of who I am today. I've worked at several different libraries. My first job when I was 14 was at a library, and I kept working at them throughout college, and I regret every day deciding to be a lawyer when I see how much fun I'm having at the Ann Arbor District Library. When someone reached out to me and said, you should, we're looking for people for library board, I was like, absolutely, I would love to be a part of the library.
That's lovely, Corinne. And you know what? That is exactly what we are losing. Like when we stop having kids that are 14, 15, 16 working in the library, that's where we get them. Like when they get those first jobs and they're like, I've always loved the library. Like we need more of that. Just saying. Who else?
I would say for me, I think that public libraries are the jewel of this country, and our library in particular is the jewel of the city, and I've always loved it. So I'm just proud to be part of it.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll jump in the same vein. I am also a library super fan, and I've always loved libraries. particularly enamored with the Ann Arbor Library. It's such a treat to live in a city with such an amazing institution, and so that was what motivated me to want to get involved. You know, with the innovative programming and you know, things like summer games and the tool library. You know, I'm borrowing synthesizers, not just books. That kind of thing is just incredible, and so I want to keep that going. And I'm also particularly interested in seeing through whatever the future of the downtown branch is, because that will need to be transformed, and we need to be careful about how we do it. So that's something I care deeply about.
Cool.
You know, I started towards the library board almost 7 years ago because I wanted to change the circumstance of our downtown branch, which I think we deserve a better circumstance. And that's why I came. And I came right on the heels of the failed millage campaign. And it was Anna who actually said, you should be on the library board. and then she left and did other things. And now she's back, which is amazing. I stayed because I saw an opportunity for the board to transform, and with some other folks, this board has changed entirely in the past 7 years in a way that I think really represents our community. And I, like a lot of other folks, think that, you know, libraries are so important because they're one of the last unprivatized spaces where we all have a chance to like be together in civic life and rub up against each other in all kinds of, you know, interesting and important ways.
Without having to buy anything.
Yeah, exactly. Not transactional, unless you want to buy a coffee, which you can do at one of our branches. I, because of the time, have to draw us to an end, but I just want to thank you for your time tonight and to tell you that we will deliberate a bit after our next interview. We have done some client referencing already in advance of the conversation tonight, and so that will come into play. But we look forward to getting back to you and really appreciate your visiting us tonight. Thanks so much.
Well, we appreciate your time as well, and thank you so much for including us in the conversation this evening, and we look forward to hearing from you.
All right.
Be here. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Good luck.
Thanks. All right. And do we have June on deck? Ah, there she is. Hi, June. It's Jim.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Good evening, everyone.
It's nice to see you. We
Yes.
spoke on the phone before, and thanks
Right.
for coming tonight. We've got about a half an hour with you, and we've prepared some questions. I'd like everyone on the board to introduce themselves to you. And if they're an officer, they'll tell you that they are. I'll start. And you know me, I'm Jim Leha, and I'm currently the president of the Board of Trustees. And I think we did alphabetical, starting with Dharma.
Yep, I'm Dharma Ackman. I am the treasurer of the board.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Molly. Oh, I'm Molly Kleinman. I do not hold any officer positions on the board.
Thank you.
Hi, Corinne Moore, vice chair of the board.
Okay.
I'm Anna Solomon and I'm the secretary.
Thank you.
Scott Trudeau, not an officer.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jamie Vanderbrook, and I'm not an officer.
And who's with you tonight?
And I'm joined by my mini Australian Shepherd, my two daughters. So
Oh,
a
how lovely.
combination of them.
Well, welcome to everyone. I try not to bore them as well as you.
It's a family affair. And then we also on the call are Josie Parker, who you know, of course,
Yes.
Elena Nyberger, who is our deputy director, and Karen Wilson, our executive assistant.
Okay.
So June, thanks for being with us. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and your experience and what you do.
Okay, well, sure. Well, I'm June Garcia. I've been a public librarian, I'm proud to say, for just over 5 decades. I've served as a reference librarian, a branch manager, head of branches in Phoenix for a number of years, was library director in San Antonio. For a short period of time, I was the CEO of a library automation company. I can honestly say I hated that job, and quickly moved into library consulting, which I've been doing now for just a little over 20 years. Initially with a business partner, but since 2008 on my own. Unlike some other recruiters, my consulting business is much broader. I work with libraries on facilities master plans, strategic planning, organizational studies. I've done e-learning. Just completed recently a major project for prior to their stopping the program. I mean, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation used to fund a lot of library programs, and I did an international leadership program for them for about 4 or 5 years. And so very diverse, I guess, is the best way to put that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And of course, a lot of executive searches too, probably close to 70 by now. So.
Wow. We've prepared questions for you, and we're going to kind of work through our protocol. We have about 5 questions and a few follow-ups. I think we start with Scott.
Yes. So how do diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-racism inform your search process? And how will you ensure that we see a diverse group of excellent candidates?
Okay. Well, certainly your commitment and mine to EDI is paramount in everything that I do. Unfortunately, the library profession is not as diverse as the populations in our country or the populations that we serve. So we have to make special efforts to make sure that candidates recognize that the position is open and that their applications are sought. That's gotten a lot easier the past couple of months because the Black Caucus of the American Library Association now has a job board, and their membership is self-diverse. And when you post on that site, you can choose to have your job announcement mailed to every one of their thousands of members. So that helps a lot to get the word out. Advertising and recruitment, of course, is key. And also reaching out to leaders in the field and encouraging them to share names of staff and people that they're aware of that are potential candidates, and then just making those phone calls, posting those letters, and conveying that this is a wonderful job for a talented candidate. The big plus that we'll have in this process is that your library is so well known for its efforts and its commitment to those key principles and values. And so someone that applies would expect to and want to and be committed to those same values. So it's not as if someone would need to enter an organization with those commitments and try and encourage or lead or drag an organization in that right direction. So, and frankly, it's to add to that, it's a little easier to do for some positions than others. So for example, I'm doing recruitment now for Santa Cruz. We have a very diverse pool. Same thing in Fort Collins, Colorado. It was really hard to get a diverse pool other than by gender and sexual orientation for Northern Idaho. For all the reasons that you can imagine. So, but it's key to a successful recruitment, and it's certainly key to my values.
Thanks. So I've got the next question.
Okay.
How do you engage with the staff in the process?
Okay.
What other stakeholders do you think are important to engage?
Well, I've engaged with the staff in different ways in the past. So pre-COVID, I would go on site. I would meet with the library's leadership team. And then I would meet separately with other groups of staff, trying to not have supervisors and the staff that they supervise in the same session. And I do that usually by posing 5 questions. The first being, if someone doesn't live here now, what would you want them to know about your community? Why is this a good place to live? Second question, if they don't know anything about your library, what would you want them to know? What are the key things that you're most proud of that you would want to highlight to a potential candidate? The third question being, what are the knowledge, skills, ability, education that this person should have? fourth question being, what is the ideal candidate? What would this person look like? And once they arrived, what are the fun things and key things and not so fun things that they get to work on? So that's sort of, what is the job? It's often the attraction of what they're going to get to do in addition to running the library itself, whether that's a building program or starting a new project or a new strategic plan, or, it can be all kinds of things that are the attraction. And then the fifth question that I ask is, what else do they think I should know that they couldn't squeeze into questions 1 to 4? And I do that, again, with many different groups. I've done similar things with the Friends of the Library, with Library Foundation, with community at large. It really depends what the client wishes. During COVID, we did all of that online. A combination of, we did Zoom calls, team calls, and then we also did an online survey in case staff were unable to participate. Have also done community surveys with the similar types of questions. What are you looking for in your new director? So the outreach can be as broad as you wish it to be. In some cases, it's very little, and in other cases, it's really quite extensive. All of that informs and helps me understand what you as an organization are looking for. And that often then helps, create the recruitment brochure and serves as a background for those calls that I make and the ads that we place. So I'm not sure if I answered everything that your question was trying to address. If not, let me know.
I think there's like a little bit more about the second part in terms of community engagement and where it comes in the process.
Okay, community engagement has typically fallen in 2 parts. Sometimes at the front end of the recruitment process in terms of what is you and members of the community looking for. That doesn't usually get a lot of involvement outside of those that are sort of the library advocates, volunteers, members of the Friends, the foundation, some local partners perhaps. At the tail end of the process, which is what I'm heading into soon with Fort Collins, we'll be holding, again, because the library wishes to do so, and I've done it in the past, basically a community reception where anyone that wishes to come can come and meet the candidates, sort of informally, meet them. They'll have some information about them and a chance just to sort of interact. They're expecting to invite about 500 people, and we're expecting about 100 to drop by. But for those that choose not to come for whatever reason, they'll understand that the library board values their opinion, wants them to know that a new director is going to be coming to town, and that we'd love to see them, even if it's only for a few minutes. But that again has been easier post-COVID and pre-COVID. Not that they're really post-COVID, but now that we can safely gather a little in some places. But I wouldn't be adverse to other means. I should add one other thing. During those final interview processes, there's often been, I won't call them interviews, but we'll call them conversations with designated groups. So we're having one in 2 weeks with members of the Friends and Foundation. We've also done them in the past with selected, elected, and appointed officials, school board representatives. It really has depended on the wishes of the board and to a certain extent, the governance structure of the organization.
Thank you. So I have the third question.
Okay.
What do you expect from us, the board, in the process?
First and foremost, your honesty. I think that's having the board honestly discuss what they're looking for in the new director. I don't have to tell you that filling Josie's shoes is going to be like really, really hard, if not impossible. And Josie would be the first person to say that, when she started with you 20 plus years ago, she doesn't have the skill set that she has now. So, but timely attention to detail and honest conversation between yourselves about what are you really looking for? Because no one is going to have all the characteristics and all the experience that you wish they would have. So what are the most important features and factors that we need to look for, and what skill set is and the rest of the staff that perhaps the director doesn't have to be as good at and can learn going forward, or doesn't need to because you've got a fantastic, CFO, and obviously the director needs to be able to run a budget sheet, but doesn't need to know all about tax law. I'm just making that up as perhaps not a very good example. And then being responsive to the timeline once we've established it. If we need to have something done by a certain date, getting feedback, if you have feedback on the questions or the recruitment brochure or anything, that sort of understanding that that's important. So, but first and foremost, being upfront and honest about what you're looking for and what you're expecting of me and how things are going.
Thank you.
Okay.
What do you perceive about AADL? Our strengths, weaknesses, challenges? What might we be looking for?
Okay. And so in terms of what little bit I know about you, your enviable track record of 13 years in a row of being an LJ 5-star library, that you've consistently been on the cutting edge of services for your community. And I think that's been phenomenal. Your beautiful new buildings, I guess they're not that new anymore, but compared to other things that I'm working on where, they're 30, 40, 50 years old, and now we're looking at renovating them. They are new. So, but I think it's the service program that your library has a reputation for, and that being responsive to your community in different ways. The 5-star library thing gives you great marks for having a good budget and circulating a lot of materials and having people come to programs, and that's all wonderful. But the depth of what you do, and again, I looked at your strategic plan. The organization's commitment to EDI is apparent, and I think that's a real plus. So all of those would be, I guess, things that I would say come to mind when I think about you. Your district status and the role of the board is very different from libraries where they're a municipal department, where they work with an allocated budget, sort of like a line item allowance. You can have this much for candy and this much for books, and you have to get permission to move money from one category to another. That will be part of the challenge is making sure that candidates understand, to the extent possible, your governance structure and how it is different from where they might be now if they're not in a similar structure. It's not that people can't switch from one to the other, they can, but their assumptions of the role of the board, working with an advisory board and working with a board like yours is totally different. So I'm not sure if I answered your entire question. If I missed a part, let me know and I'll go back.
I think that was adequate.
Okay, thank you.
So I have the next question.
Okay.
So, and I'm happy to repeat this. It's a little bit of a tongue twister.
Okay.
What do we need to know that we don't know we need to know? How do you educate us about the process?
About the process.
The process of like what you'll help us with, like the search.
Okay. So the recruitment process.
Mm-hmm.
It's never as straightforward as it looks. It takes more time than you think it will. And you'll be unfortunately surprised at some of the resumes that people will submit because they don't present themselves as well as they could have, or they apply and you think, I'm sorry, the fact that you've just graduated from high school and you've taken care of your children's picture book collection, this is not your next job. And at the same token, we'll see others that'll be just absolutely stellar. In terms of educating you to the process, there are so many points in the process where you'll, including now, where you'll have choices. And there's no real right or wrong answer to those questions. And so, for example, you asked me earlier about community engagement. Well, at the front end of the process, do you, the board, want to involve the community in helping to determine the characteristics of the new director? Do you want your consultant to hold public meetings that elicit responses to that? Do you want to do a community survey? So the main thing that I think you should be expecting from your consultant is at those points where decisions could be made. I mean, in my proposal, and I'm sure the others you received, is sort of outlined a process. But as I think I mentioned, it sort of depends. It does depend locally on your expectations, what your staff expects, what your community expects. And so I would expect to raise for you questions at those points, which then again, you would decide, what is the best way to do it for you. I would give you, to the extent possible, the pros and cons and what people have done in the past and why they did it. But just because that was the path they took doesn't mean it's the path that you should take. Ideally, that would get worked out fairly early so that we knew where we were headed, but other things, we could decide later on in the process. You went through some process to pick the questions that you were going to ask me this evening. And we would have at least two options going forward in which you would be identifying questions for the candidates to answer. And let me give you an example of a case where 2 recent searches, the board decided to do something a little different. I suggested it to them, but they loved it instead, and they did it. Didn't make it great just because I suggested it. We had already interviewed people twice by Zoom before we decided who was going to come to town. And COVID was still pretty active during this time period, so they didn't bring anybody sooner that they felt was safe for their health to do that. And I said, we've already interviewed them twice. How much more can we ask? And so instead, when they brought them on site, in advance, we gave them 6 topics from which they could choose. We asked them to prepare a 15-minute presentation on that topic, and then to facilitate a discussion with the board on that topic. And they were all topics of interest to the board. So one was EDI, one was digital literacy, one was partnerships, one was, they were a half a dozen or so. And the candidates, the board loved it. The candidates came in, they had their PowerPoint, they did their thing, they engaged them in conversation. And they got some sense of what that candidate might be like when he or she was out in the community, with both their public presentation skills as well as their facilitation skills. And so, that was a different path. It still got them to where they needed to be to have enough information to decide who their director is going to be. So I think my role would be to help you understand what the questions are, give you some ideas of what some answers could be, and then help you find the right answers for your path through this process. The process being to an ultimate selection of your new executive director.
Thanks, June. I have 2 additional questions. One is kind of a practical one, which is as you work through search processes, do you have some sort of exclusivity agreement in your contract about not touching candidates that you've placed in other places within a certain time frame for other searches?
No.
Okay. And then
no one's ever asked me to have that in a contract. So
yeah, so you haven't. I know some search firms do, some don't. The other question for you is more of one of kind of style and differentiation. How, we've looked at 3 proposals. We're interviewing 2 folks tonight. what makes you and your process unique? What's the thing that differentiates you from the others?
Okay, well, I'm going to guess who the others are without naming them. So I'm going to differentiate myself from unstated candidates. Or the first is that I've actually done the job. I mean, I've been a library director. I've worked with boards. I've managed staff. I've managed budgets. So although it's been a while, I bring that real world experience to the table. Secondly, I know the profession, and I know what's happening in the profession. With that 40 plus years of experience being active in ALA, the Public Library Association, of which I served as president, 3 terms on the ALA Council. I've got a pretty good grounding in knowing people in the field and what's happening in the field. The fact that my consulting business isn't restricted only to recruitment even helps keep me grounded even more so what's happening these days in real world service. And I get to see, as I think I mentioned in my proposal, potential candidates in their workplace, which is very different than reading about them on the internet. And perhaps last but not least, I've done 65, 70 or so searches, and I've done them. I mean, when you hire me, you get me. That's the good news and the bad news. When you hire a firm that has other people working for them, there's advantages to that, but you don't necessarily know with whom you're going to be working, or necessarily that the people that you're now hiring are the ones that actually did the searches that are listed on the resume as opposed to a corporate thing. So I guess those are the main ones. And I guess I would add that I think I have a reputation for being politely honest. I sometimes might tell you what you don't want to hear, but I'll try and do it in a way that is tactful and responsive and something that you need to know. So,
thanks.
I would hope all of your candidates would say that.
Thank you. And with the 6-7 minutes we have left, I turn it to you to ask us or reflect anything that's on your mind.
I guess the primary question I would have at this point is your time frame. I mean, I know Josie's leaving in February. The chances of having someone in place by then are minimal, just because of the holidays and how that's going to impact the schedule. So realistically, what are you hoping to achieve in that regard?
I think that we'd like the search to move, at a reasonable pace and not have too much of a gap between Josie's departure and the start of a new director.
Okay.
And I think that there's also, for all of us, a desire to kind of stay focused and diligent about getting to a great set of final candidates in a reasonable amount of time. So we don't lose candidates that are,
Excellent.
in competition for other positions.
Right.
And B, so that we don't lose our own focus as we are all busy working professionals, and some of us are parents and have other commitments beyond our board work. And, with all that said, I don't think any of us are particularly nervous about a period of time where we have an interim situation. We haven't discussed this, but we have a great staff, great leadership all around. And one of Josie's wonderful gifts to the system is to have nurtured a really wonderful team that knows how to run the place. So, we don't have a hard go the day that Josie walks out the door.
Right. Yeah, I would think that it would be possible to do all the preparatory work and be ready to drop the actual recruitment announcements right after the first of the year, so that you're trying to recruit and advertising over Christmas and the New Year is just not going to get the kind of attention that one would expect. But being ready to do that right after, and then moving into the the next 6 to 8 weeks of interviewing and resolving it from then on. So, okay.
Great. Anything else for us?
No, I don't.
Right. Any other kind of final follow-up from other board members? Great. Well, June, I want to first thank you for your time. We really appreciate you sitting down with us tonight. We're going to deliberate a bit. We did do some client reference checks before we had these interviews tonight, so some of our board members are going to share out with us what they learned, and we'll see if we can get to a decision by the end of the evening. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's really been a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah. Betsy, I did hear, Jamie, I did hear that Betsy talked to you. So,
She was great. Thank you.
yeah, so anyways, yes, she was wonderful to work with in the middle of COVID.
Oy.
Thank you all. And regardless of which consultant you pick, I wish you every success. It's a tough job. It's probably the hardest thing that you as a board do. So, and good luck. Take care.
Thanks, June.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Great. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I have, I want to propose something to you. It's 8:23. I'm gonna ask us to entertain a motion to take a recess so that we have just a chance to regroup ourselves as individuals and come back. Would you like to, I mean, we have to vote on that, whether we do it or not. Would you like to entertain that motion now, or would you like to hear about client references first? People have feelings about that?
How long of a recess?
I was thinking just 10 minutes. We could do shorter. We could do 5 minutes.
I think I'd like to hear references first so I can fully cook on
Okay.
break.
Yeah, I feel that's probably the way to do it if we can hang tight just a little bit longer. So who do we have doing references? I know Dharma and Jamie.
I can report out on it, and Jamie
Okay.
can fill in.
And
any
then there was
gaps I might miss.
there was a document that you shared as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So at a high level, Jamie and I talked to 2 references for each firm. In all cases, we talked to board presidents or their equivalents. I did try to get in touch with somebody that was on the side of being hired, but I wasn't successful in doing that in time. So all the references that we got were from board presidents or their equivalent. And we talked to them at Baltimore County Library and Denver Public Library for Bradbury Miller. And for Joan Garcia, we talked to the Boise Public Library and the Tillamook County Library in Oregon. At a high level, for both of these firms, people had a very positive reaction. I'll speak to Bradbury Miller first. People highlighted that there was nothing that they wished that could have been done differently when they were asked. They both brought up, in my case, and I'm not sure if this is the case for Jamie, but unprompted about the firm's really good job in bringing in a diverse slate of candidates, saying that it was a really key important factor in their search. Let's see, they were really satisfied with the outcome of their process. So one, I think the director search was in 2015, so they've had like 6 years of history and they're still happy with that outcome. The other did their search during the height of the pandemic and said that they were able to navigate those, very challenging time to look for somebody. And also mentioned that they have a very well-designed, defined process that they come in with and that they cater to the library's individual needs. I'm just going to make sure that I kind of hit the main points. Very professional, very responsive. I think those are the key things. Jamie, do you have anything else to add about Bradbury Miller?
No, those are the main things, like full service, I guess.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Because one of the things June Garcia said is like, when you hire me, you get me. Do you
Yeah.
know, like, were the same people, like, who was it that was working on those?
Right.
Was it the
I didn't ask that at all.
I didn't either, and it didn't come up. The person just kept saying that he was really happy with the job that they did, and but he was less focused on like the personality of the, you know what I mean? It was less like this person did a great job than the firm did a great job, which contrasted with, the person who had worked with June, where it seemed very much like they made a personal connection with each other and it was about their relationship.
Great, thanks for asking that. So we'll move on to June Garcia. I think as Jamie just mentioned, references really connected with her, mentioned that she was very dynamic and highlighted how she has a lot of really deep connections in the field that help surface strong candidates. She provided a lot of advice and guidance, and specifically the person that I talked to said on other like related matters that were a little bit outside of the search. Let's see, one library said that she needs someone to really on the ground to run the internal logistics of the search. So like scheduling, coordinating, planning, etc. Diversity was not a specific goal that was mentioned at either institution. I did not ask or bring it up when I asked people. And it sounds like it didn't come up in Jamie, but I'm not sure if you asked.
I asked.
Okay.
So I asked both of them and I was surprised actually that, that it hadn't been a focus of their attention. But yeah, she said that it had not really been a focus of the search, and that so she didn't have really an answer about how June did that when she was trying to do it, if that makes sense. Like which is contrasted with Bradbury Miller, where I asked them or the person at Denver, and he had said that had been very important and that the candidates were diverse, but that it was also clear that was an intention.
Makes sense. Also talked about her extensive work to create promotional materials on the city for potential candidates, and that involved a lot of conversations with different constituencies. I think some of this is like some of these places that aren't necessarily a natural draw for people, trying to figure out how to sell it to people that might not know a lot about a small town. Let's see. I think that's it. Is there anything I missed, Jamie?
I don't think so. I think those are the main things.
Yeah, I do think this question of, who do you end up working with? It's an interesting one. Although, from what I can tell of Bradbury Miller, it's also not like it's a sprawling consultancy. And it's also something that we could query them on before we were to make a final offer, if that was the way that we were moving. Definitely gives me a little pause, the feedback of like there needs to be kind of an internal person. I mean, I think that's probably the case with any consultant, no matter the size, is that there has to be sort of an internal point person. But the differentiation of like how, in my experience at least, between like how much sort of administrative work the consultant can handle or not really is just like varies widely on a spectrum.
Yeah, I guess that's detail I should have included that I didn't. The women that I talked to, and I know that some of this is like what people are available and willing to do, but she said she did about 30 hours a week during this time. And this was one of the June references.
Yeah.
She is who?
The library board director or equivalent.
Did 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
I won't be doing that.
Yeah. So I mean,
Sorry.
It was really similar when I had my calls to Jim, like the person at Denver said, oh, well, you should really plan a lot of time when the candidates are here. You're going to need to be in like long meetings, like when you're interviewing the candidates, which made total sense to me,
Yeah, that's a no-brainer, right?
But he didn't say anything about the period leading up to that point. And then when I talked to the person at Tillamook, she said that she ended up taking on this role that Dharma's mentioning for the person that she talked to, where she spent a lot of time all the way up to. And then I thought, I don't think we have anyone who has that time, because all of us have like complete full-time lives then we deal with this on top of that. So that made me feel like, uh-oh, that is not a fit for us. But I think tonight, we'll talk about this after the break. I got less of that sense when we tried to ask about it. So I'm clear.
Yeah, I
Great.
mean, and I don't know if this is a question for later, but I mean, you kind of answered my question, Jamie, but Dharma, I'm interested, like, after talking to the references, do you have an impression of like, because of like what would be a good fit for us as a board?
So let's hold that thought.
Sure.
I think it's a great question. I'd kind of like, I want to resist the halo effect and try to like get us to the point of like some initial impressions based on the interviews before we pull in the, like sort of your special, analysis based on those conversations.
To that point, could we, I don't think we need to hold anyone to it, but could we write on a piece of paper, like who we're leaning toward?
I would be
kind of like
perfect.
have it all like, so that we're not, because I feel like that does happen, right? Like it's like somebody's like, I'm thinking this person, and then someone else is like, oh yeah, me too, So like during the break, can we maybe do that as an exercise? And obviously nobody's held to that as like an actual vote, but like just kind of like what we're thinking individually.
Yeah, I
Would
think as
people be
point
comfortable?
of process, I would be happy to do that. Although Josie's taking herself off mute, so she might be.
I sure am, because
Yeah.
during this break, you all cannot be talking to each other at all.
No,
that
that's
would
not
be-
what we're
Okay.
saying, Josie.
Okay.
So
All right,
what I
then
would
I will
ask,
go back. Then I will go back to mute. Then.
so what I'm going to propose is what Anna said after we come back from the break, that we just do this as an exercise. It is not a vote; it's just an exercise. And yes, don't talk to each other on the break. All right, so I'd like to hear a motion for. You want to just do 5 minutes, or people want longer than that?
I do
I'm gonna
10.
do minutes.
You gonna do 10?
I don't think, yeah, I think it'd be better, but I don't.
Well, let's hear a motion for recess for 10 minutes.
I moved to take a 10-minute recess. Did I do that right?
Yes. Did I hear a second?
Second.
Corrine, thank you. And then any discussion? All right, let's have a vote, please. I think everything's got to be roll call these days.
Yes, it does. Dharma Achman,
Yes.
Molly Kleinman,
Yes.
Jim Leha,
Yes.
Corrine Moore,
Yes.
Anna Solomon,
Yes.
Scott Trudeau,
Yes.
Jamie Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Okay, we are going to recess for 10 minutes. We will see each other at 8:45.
How are we doing this
Yeah.
technically? Do we leave the meeting and come back?
I think if we go on mute,
Okay.
it should be okay.
Okay.
Friday night took care of my weekday blues. I woke up, had breakfast, and read the news. I'm feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. But I feel like there's something I'm forgetting to do.
Hey, Toby, the show's about to start.
Oh yeah, it's a Saturday show. 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 It's a Saturday show.
Hey, Otto, what you doing?
Oh, I'm just making a birthday card.
A birthday card? Whose birthday is it? Is it Fred's birthday? Did we miss Fred's birthday?
Nope, guess again.
Is it your birthday, Otto? You never told me when your birthday was.
Nope, it's for the Saturday show.
A birthday card for the show?
Yep, the Saturday show is almost 1.5 years old, so I thought we'd celebrate.
Wow, I didn't even realize it's been that long. How are we gonna celebrate?
I asked Fred to make a cake, and I thought we'd reminisce.
Reminisce?
Yep, I thought we'd look back at all the awesome times we've had on the show.
That sounds good, and I know exactly where to start. Do you remember our first episode? Otto, I understand you had a very long journey to get here. Would you like to tell the folks about it?
Sure, but I think I'd like to do it with a song.
Well, I don't know if we've got time for that.
DJ Marsupial, kick that beat.
I was dropped in a box down in Kentucky. The scenery there is oh so lovely. Thoroughbred horses with manes like silk. And if you're thirsty, the state beverage is milk. That's true, you know. Then I found myself in Cincinnati. I had traveled for days, I was feeling crabby. I ordered up food to get me ready, but they served me my chili on top of spaghetti. It's not for everyone. I made it to Detroit, but my trip wasn't through. Michigan is pretty, Indiana is too. I headed out south down US 24 and ended up at the Indiana State House door.
What would you go to Indiana for?
In Indy, I only had one task. I swam up the White River, ended up at the track. My time at the Brickyard was a real blast. I hopped in a race car and went real fast.
And then I came back here to do the show with you.
So you drove all the way to Indianapolis just to drive a race car?
I'm a turtle, Toby. We don't always have opportunities to go fast.
That song still holds up, bud.
It does, and you can tell how shy I was back then. What a trip.
Hey fellas, what are you two up to?
Just reminiscing.
Oh, about what? A Hawaiian vacation? That time we went fossil hunting in Siberia? That time we took the train to Idaho?
No, about the Saturday show. Do you remember the first time you came to Toby's house, Fred?
Yeah, I think I do. Wasn't I just supposed to come for a visit?
Yeah, I think that was the case.
Well, I'm glad I stayed. Knock, knock.
Oh boy, Big Fred, you're here. So good to see you. Come in, come in.
Oh, hey there, Otto. How you doing there, bud? It's so good to see you. Otto, I'm really digging your accommodations. This place is great. Are you enjoying yourself?
Thanks, Fred. I've really been enjoying the time I've spent here.
Well, aren't you going to introduce me to your family?
Well, my mom's doing pretty good, and Uncle Testudo's always got a story to tell.
No. I'm not talking about them. I know them. I'm talking about your new family.
You know, I never really thought of it that way, but I guess you're right. All right, come on. Let's go see what Toby's up to.
Yeah.
I'm glad you stayed too, Fred. You got yourself a job.
Yeah, as Otto's personal chef.
And you found yourself a hobby.
I'm a certified basketball nut.
And you made some new friends.
Yep. Tasha and Amanda and Katie and Allison and Lauren and Christopher, to name a few. Speaking of, I'm late to meet Tasha at the creek, so I'm out of here. See you later, fellas.
We do have a lot of friends that contribute to the Saturday show, don't we, Otto?
We do. The TSS crew is amazing.
We've learned so much and had so much fun. My favorite part about our team is just how adventurous they are.
Was that shark chasing chicken a shark?
It was a shark, but I don't know if it was a shark.
A shark is great. Remember when he sold us some of his chili?
Yeah, I think I have that can somewhere around here, but I really dig a shark's music. Do you remember when he sang all the digits of pi?
Hey, it's a shark. I'm here to teach you about the never-ending number pi. Are you ready? Okay, sing along. Go. 3, 4, 1, 4, 1, 5, 9, 2, 6, 5, 3, 5, 8, 9, 7, 9, 3, 2, 3, 8, 4, 6, 2, 6, 4, 3, 3, 8, 3, 2, 7, 9, 5, 0, 2, 8, 8, 4, 1, 9, 7, 1, 6, 9, 3, 9, 9, 3. Pi, 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 7, 5, 1, 0, 5, 8, 2, 0, 9, 7, 4, 9, 4, 4, 5, 9, 2, 3, 0, 7, 8, 1, 6, 4, 0, 6, 2, 8, 6, 2, 0, 8, 9, 9, 8, 6, 2, 8, 0, 3, 4, 8, 2, 5, 3, 4, 2, 1. Pi, 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 1, 7, 0, 6, 7, 9, 8, 2, 1, 4, 8, 8, 0, 8, 5, 1, 3, 2, 3, 6. The numbers. The numbers. Pi, 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 pi,
You know, Otto, we're well into this episode and we don't have a word of the day yet.
Oh, that's because Kashi and Christopher are on vacation this week.
Did they go to the seaside again?
Not sure, but wherever they are, they're laughing.
Look, I'm being a metronome. Tick tock. That's something you do with music too sometimes. Tick tock, metronome.
All right, it's 8:45. Just bring us back to order here. We're all reaccumulating. Before the break, I suggested that we do a little bit of a blind kind of exercise of writing down on a piece of paper kind of where each of us is at, and showing that kind of independently all at once, so that we can get a kind of group sense before we start deliberating. So if you does everyone have a post-it note? Yay! Because we all work at home. All right. So I suppose what you're proposing, Anna, is that we write down kind of who in our minds right now is maybe the front runner. Is that the suggestion? Great.
Yeah, because just like you said, there's the halo effect. There's the whatever, there's different terms for them, but like where it's like, you know, this kind of group think stuff sets in, and it's just nice to kind of see where
everyone's landing.
Where we're thinking. I mean, and full disclosure before I reveal, like I really have pros and cons for both. You know what I mean? I'm not at all committed to either side, but I think it's just helpful to kind of
take the temperature. This is just sort of gut check moment, and then we'll talk through some of the specifics. All right, has everyone written? Yes. Seeing nods. Yes. Okay. Let's show.
Okay.
Kind of where we're at. So we've got many Bradbury Millers and 2 June Garcias. So 5-2. All right. So I think the folks who wrote down June Garcia should speak first.
I'm happy to go first.
Go ahead.
And I'm also on the fence, so I could be persuaded. And just a couple of things. One is, so when I came into this meeting, I'd been persuaded that I was going to, you know, Bradbury Miller was going to be the pick, based on the reference notes that I read and our previous deliberations. And the thing so June felt better prepared and more clearly articulated her answers and felt like a stronger communicator, like she'd done more homework and answered I think a little bit more directly, which I liked. For the reference checks originally, I thought, oh wow, like getting the diverse pool from Bradbury Miller looks like, you know, an easy distinction to make. But then learning that the June folks were from Tillamook and Boise, who even Bradbury Miller said, like, we did an Idaho recruitment and it was very difficult to get a diverse pool of candidates, makes me, you know, versus Baltimore and Denver, which are larger cities, more attractive to recruit and probably have, you know, populations more interested in being in those markets. Kind of put some color on that, like in a way that made me think about how strong that distinction really is, based on the reference checks. And I think June's argument for her experience beyond just doing executive searches and seeing people in a variety of roles, I think that is a useful lens. I could go into the weaknesses too, but I think those are the strengths. And again, I'm like on the fence on it. And also just with Bradbury Miller, like the answers didn't feel clear. And I was also really unhappy with their DI answer. Like, I think ultimately they came to the same answer where it's like, you just have to go where people are and make it clear. But I really appreciated June recognizing that that's a primary and foremost value of this library system. And that in it of itself is a strength for attracting and recruiting those you know, candidates who might otherwise, you know, be leery of throwing their hat into the ring. So yeah, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, so I will start with the weaknesses because I feel like you covered a lot of the similar feeling that I had, which is like my biggest red flag with June is the time commitment that we were talking about. Like that definitely makes me very, very leery of engaging her. And I would want to follow up with that in, you know, if we were to go with her, I would want, or like if we were to explore it further, I would want to clarify, like very clearly let her know that there is not a person on our board who can serve in a capacity of that many hours, and like how would she manage that? So I just want to say, like, that's my biggest concern. But if I were to base my decision solely on the interviews that they gave tonight, she is so knowledgeable and gave such clear, just like Scott said, like just really, really clear answers. I like the fact that, like, you know who you're working with, and that she has she clearly knows things inside and out. And I did find her answers to be much more direct, much more confident, and much more succinct and like to the point, and like I just felt more confidence in her. If we are feeling worried about something or unsure about something, that she's going to be able to come in and say, I know what to do here. Whereas I felt like the other two, you know, I mean, it's a new owner of this business that's been around for a long time, but this owner is a new owner. She hasn't been in the position for a long time. And the person that she brought to the meeting has only been with the organization for 8 months. And so I didn't feel as much like, oh, like we have this like very, very, you know, wise like person that we can kind of like be held in that, you know. So for me that felt that's why I put her, but with the really big caveat that the time stuff is a huge concern. So that's.
I don't know how you want to structure the conversation, Jim, but I have sort of a response on one of the things that stood out to Scott that is sort of like a flip side that I don't know if I should just sort of go with that.
Yeah, so I mean, let's jump in and open up to just everyone to talk about June. And I think like let's try to stick. I would just say like if we can stay with talking about the candidates, kind of in their own rights, and less about kind of comparison at this point, that's probably a good practice. But okay. I mean, inevitably we will start comparing. Yeah. So anyone, please.
Yeah. So I think, you know, for her answer on diversity, equity, and inclusion, she leaned pretty heavily on the ALA, the American Library Association, and this one list. And from what I know of how things have been going in the ALA over the last few years, there's a lot of issues around inclusion and diversity among leadership, and how like I wouldn't feel so great leaning so heavily on the ALA for recruiting a diverse and excellent candidate pool, I think. And I recognize that it is the professional organization, so it's not like there's a ton of other options, but just given what I've seen, that felt a little off to me.
I agree. For both, honestly. It didn't get the answer that I wanted from either of them. I wanted them to say, I know great candidates, or I can think of all. I wanted them to be confident that they would recruit great people with diverse backgrounds to the library. And I felt uncertainty in terms of being able to deliver on that from both of them, even though I agree that that June seemed confident. But neither of them to me answered that question the way I wanted it to be answered.
I guess I do a lot of interviewing at my job, and I always try to remember that interview performance doesn't equal performance. I mean, obviously we don't have that many things that many data points to rely on, but to me it matters a lot what went into the proposal and the references in combination. And to me, we have a firm that was cited as successfully yielding a diverse pool. Now, granted, they were in different metropolitan areas, so I think that's a really good point to bring up, Scott, and I'm glad that you did. But I feel like I'm satisfied with the work that they've done in this area, and that to me seems really important. Sorry, we're trying to focus on one candidate at a time. I guess I would say about June is that I agree she has like really deep library knowledge. I think that's really good. I think her answers were very thoughtful. On the, negative side, I think that she would be spread very thin because she's the one person that does it all. So it means we're sharing her with everything else that she does, and that there's nobody else backing her up and filling in gaps. And I also thought her response to when this would even get started being the new year, I don't think we want to wait till the new year to start recruiting for this position, do we? So that to me, like the timeline and the time involved like, I think the point is well taken that like we have to take into account there's holidays and there are certain things that are in our control, but I don't see any reason why we can't get things rolling. I don't know why we'd have to wait till the new year, so.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any reason to completely put it off until after the new year. I will say, I think the Department of Civil Rights did the same thing. They were told they wouldn't get a lot of people over the holidays, but that didn't stop them from opening, you know what I mean? And start the recruitment process. Yes, they needed to extend it because they didn't get, you know, as much publicity as they wanted, but that didn't stop them from opening it as soon as they could, you know, to start that process. The other thing I felt, I don't know, I didn't feel as much of a connection with June, but the other thing that turned me off is she seemed to discourage sort of the upfront engagement of stakeholders. She was just like, if you want to do it, you know, we can, and here are the 5 questions I ask, and blah, blah, blah. But I think Jim had to prompt her about maybe reaching out to the broader community, you know, whereas Bradbury was like, we do surveys, you know, that's really important. I also feel like, well, I know we're not supposed to be talking about Bradbury as much, but so I'll go back to June. I feel like June didn't have as much of an understanding of the unique attributes of our community that might make it somewhat difficult to work with, possibly, if we completely exclude them from the process. And so again, just speaking directly about June. So I won't talk about Bradbury yet. That's all.
I will say that, I mean, I've had I guess the kind of privilege of talking to both Karen and June now twice. And I would say, to stick to June, that at the beginning of my phone call with June, I was like, I'm like, no way will this person kind of be a good sort of style fit for our group. But by the end, I had turned around and thought, oh, you know, she's an interesting candidate. And so I think that, and part of that is just related to, I think, what you saw in the interview, which is she's a very straightforward and very linear thinker. And there's like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And I think there's a benefit to that. And so my question is, like, does that sort of like kind of linear and very sort of like project oriented self-presentation lend itself well to how we want to work? And I think, as Corrine said, like, my question is, like, how does that actually play out sort of in that first part of the work, which is the discovery phase, where she's got to talk to a lot of people internally, externally, to all of us, to kind of make a decision, to help us come to like a kind of nuanced understanding of what we're looking for, and also for her to arrive at a nuanced way of describing the job and talking about it and seeking out potential candidates. I think the directness of her style, which she does allude to by saying, I will tell you the truth, I'll try to do it in a polite way, I think that will be off-putting to some candidates. And I don't know if her style is sort of, communication styles is sort of emblematic of like how we want to be represented in the way that we communicate with candidates. So I think that that's just something to think about. On a level, I have to say, I think she gave a great interview, and she was really super focused, but almost to a point where it's just the laser beam kind of cuts out a lot of peripheral stuff that might be important to be thinking about. You know, but it's interesting to interview with a person who just like answers a question and stops. I wish I had that skill. I never can. I can
Yeah,
stop
so
and I won't stop.
to go, so I actually felt like her answer was similar to their answer, which was kind of like, it really depends on you. I'm going back to the early discovery phase. Like, it depends on you, and it depends on what you want as a client, what you're going to focus on. Like, so is, she had good answer. To me, she had fine answers. Can we talk about the time commitment stuff? And Dharma and Jamie, can you talk about, like, your kind of reactions to, because Dharma, I think your point is really well taken, that like interviews are one thing, but like what people are telling you about the outcomes and the experience of the process is a whole other. That's why, why we're doing the references, right? Is to get these other perspectives, because that is, I really did like what she had to say, but I also have very serious concerns about if, like, does she have an assistant, Jim? Like is she like, is she truly like a one person consulting firm, or does she have people working under her that are helping to, like, move the process along?
I think it's possible she doesn't have capacity to do what we want until the new year anyway, because of possibly existing commitments, but go on, you were saying.
Yeah,
Right, like, is she proposing this timeline because she has other things she has to finish before she can focus her attention? Yeah,
right,
because
the way I understood her answer to that question wasn't that we would start in January. It was that we would start advertising the role, and we don't start advertising the role until we define what we're looking for. So that engagement piece would still happen up front.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Is what I was understood. So at least that's how I understood the response. But yeah, I don't know how long that's going to take.
Tell us that she doesn't think certain parts of that engagement process are as important as the ex post facto, part of meeting the potential candidates. I think she's a little bossy. I think she knows, and I get it. Like, she has the experience behind it. Like, let me make this strong suggestion to you because I've done 70 of these. And you could either consider it or not consider it, but this is my very strong suggestion. You know what I mean? And I frankly really would rather work with Karen. But go on.
So I have this thing when I hear a Philly accent where my antenna go up, and she's an East Coast person. She's from the East Coast, and there's a cultural difference between a Midwestern firm, even though it doesn't sound like she's been there since like college, but I do, like, I picked up on that tone difference for sure. But we are a Midwestern city. It doesn't matter where I'm from. And so I do think that seems like it might be a potentially something to consider.
I think I might also react to it as a library insider. Like, I feel like I don't know how much I want to make use of the advice on the other topics, because I feel like we get such excellent advice from staff and from the connections that we have. So I guess I feel like I'd rather have like a different set of extra services from a person. If I'm going to get a person and they have like a certain set of criteria or qualifications, like extra advice on other topics, or like a new contact who's going to really help us shape things going forward, is not what I'm in the market for right now. So that's why I think additionally, I felt like she was less of a fit for us. I do want to say though, Anna and Scott, I mean, I wrote down confident multiple times. I really felt like she was polished and seemed to answer the questions like with confidence, and like she was confident in her own abilities. And I think that there's something to that. And it's so hard not to compare. I'll hold my comparison that's in the back of my head to the next spot.
So let's move on. Let's talk about Bradbury Miller. Will one of the Bradbury Miller folks speak on behalf of Bradbury Miller?
I'll go.
Thank you.
I think that they offer the suite of services that we need to run a successful search while minimizing the burden on us to do like coordinating sorts of tasks. I really liked that and I'm sorry, I can't remember the gentleman's name offhand.
Brian.
But he has library experience, several years at different levels. I liked that is on the team. I also thought that the way that they spoke to our community and the library was pretty astute. And those to me were the key things.
I loved the way that they responded when, Jim, you asked them like what differentiated them. I feel like they like came alive, turned on, and like gave their best answers during that question. I loved when he said they were the hungriest, like that sort of like a little bit of humor was nice. And I wrote down the matchmaking. Like I felt like she lit up and was like, "Oh, I love to do the matchmaking." And so to me, in that little moment, I thought that was a strength for them.
They did a better job at engaging us, which goes to, can they represent us to potential candidates? And I think they can. Whereas, all of June's confidence, I don't feel like she had any interest in really knowing us and therefore being able to appropriately represent us to candidates. She's a fail for me. But sorry, we're not supposed to be talking about June. I'm really bad at this. All right.
I also took seriously the different the references and just that sense that they would be able to sort of support the kind of board that we are. But I also appreciated that when we asked them what they know about Ann Arbor, they recognize the challenges that we have had in terms of the failed millage. Like they had dug that deep and they were not afraid to mention it. And I appreciated both of those things. Because I think that kind of complete picture of, again, like Corinne said, of who we are that tells me that they're going to be similarly, I would hope, similarly completist about the candidates as well, and sort of unflinching about strengths and weaknesses.
I think they're more flexible.
We heard that word a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed Karen was not as focused as I experienced when I talked to her the first time. And where I could tell you just hands down of the three was the most impressive in those initial screening calls. So that was a little disappointing, but I also it's a great interview tactic to leave us talking about ourselves at the end, right? Like, because everybody likes to talk about themselves in the context of these sorts of things, but they learn something about us. We get to reconnect with why we're here in a really just like genuine and authentic way. I was hoping now I'm going to do the thing I said not to do, but I was hoping we might find that moment with June and left her some space to kind of ask a bit more, but it was very I know what I need to know. And of course, a shop with a few more folks, with a few more hands in the shop is always an appealing factor. I do, as a born and bred Midwesterner, have a bias towards a certain kind of communication style that I did see presented to me in the personae of Bradbury Miller, and that I did not see in June Garcia. I think, should we, I think we can dig a little deeper before the final, before we issue a final offer, about who we're working with specifically and what the kind of administrative capacity is, and being very clear that none of us will act as a sort of administrative coordinator in all of this. And I don't actually think that there's a staff person who does that in a kind of in-depth way, although there will need to be a staff contact, at least in the front end, to coordinate staff engagement. I remember Karen saying, when I asked her the differentiation question originally, saying, you know, we're the touchy-feely firm. And there are a certain number of us who are the touchy-feely types on this board, and also like the culture of the system is very oriented towards a kind of inclusion, transparency, assessing individual kind of impact and nuance, and how and the sort of idiosyncratic nature of individuals in the way that they work, which has led to a really kind of a constellation of programs that maybe might not otherwise have flourished, because that kind of culture is nurtured in the system. Like, people have interests and they're encouraged to follow them, and like that doesn't always mean that there's a linear path or that you can make sense of. And so I think that idea of flexibility and of our finding our way through a process in a really nuanced way is going to be important. And I see that happening more with Bradbury Miller than with June.
I will say that June is obviously very talented and experienced and can no doubt get the job done, but I think kind of hit that. But whether we like it or not, we are a little touchy-feely. Like, I am the least touchy-feely person I know, right? And normally June would be my person, because I don't want, you know what I mean? And that's the lawyer part of me. Like, I want the June, but in my library, I kind of want Karen. I want, you know, Karen to be that person, you know? And it's weird, like Josie's a mixture of sort of like, she can total hard ass, right, when we need her to be, but you know, she has the soft side that also really, it's hard, it's gonna be really hard to replace Josie, right? But anyway, I was just saying.
So Dharma or Jamie, can you talk a little bit more? I mean, I know you already described it, but like, did you get the sense that when you were talking to June's references, like that this is kind of the time commitment piece really is like just the way she operates?
I mean, it came up like that. So it wasn't like anyone, and I think because of the nature of this, like most boards similarly do not experience this more than once, right? So it's like first time for everybody and they don't have a comparison. So I will say that like no one brought it up as like, and the way that she did it, we had to do all this work. You know what I mean? I don't think like they knew any better. It's just the fact that it came up with both of the people that we talked to. Like, it's going to be a huge amount of your time. I spent 30, you know, this was unprompted again, 30 hours of my time leading up to the interviews. So like 30 hours a week. So, you know.
That's accurate. And I thought that's why we decided to hire someone though, because my experience, you know, on other boards and commissions has been that it's a lot of your spare time. Not quite 30 hours a week, but I was never in the position of chair, which Jim is. But it was a lot of work, and I definitely had to take days off of work when we were doing the interviews, because it was, all right, you're gonna have to come down the entire day and we're gonna have to sit here and talk to these people. So I'm expecting that. I'm not expecting 30 hours a week. To some extent, that sounds like an administrator, secretary person, like she doesn't have any staff or something.
This was a board member, so this wasn't, I mean.
Right, okay, yeah. Yeah, and so we also, and it could also be the size of the library. That seems odd to me that the board member had to do that much work and they were working with a consultant. Like, what's the point of the
Right.
if you're still doing 30 hours?
Right, but it seemed consistent with my reference as well. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, she's a reference for her for a reason. I think they've remained close and she had a great experience and she seemed unconcerned about having had to do that. So she didn't say it as a negative at all. In fact, I asked, like, one of the questions I asked of each of them was like, what would you wish this group did differently? And that's not when it came up. But I felt like, oh dear, none of us has that much time. And then if it's supposed to be someone internal, I don't know how that would even work or what that means. Like, that's really awkward because it seems like we run this search at our level to be sort of outside the context of the inside of the library. Like, that's the whole idea. And so it'd be very strange to ask someone internal to do a lot of the work, I would think, if they're not gonna, yeah.
Like,
sorry, go ahead, Kareen.
Out and scheduled people, for interviews. I don't, some of the work, but going through the applications and stuff, that's the stuff that takes time. Organizing the Excel spreadsheet takes a lot of time, and we totally expect the consultants to take the lead on that. I do expect meetings. I can't imagine it not taking like 4 to 6 hours, a week. Probably 30 a month, but a week, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't very specific. I don't know if you were, Dharma.
No, I wasn't. It came up unprompted, like I said. And I think that like we have to remember that maybe our board is slightly unique in being like all, full-time professionals. I think a lot of other boards aren't made up that way. And so maybe their needs are just different, their assumptions about how much time they have and stuff. So I think like Jamie, they did not bring it up as a problem. They brought it up as like a reality that we should be prepared for, basically. And I thought, we are not prepared for that reality.
And it's hard. I don't know that we're going to get an honest answer. It goes back to the hey, so how much time, do you really think that executive committee or, hiring committees are you going to need from us per week? I'm not sure they're going to give you I'm not sure June will admit to, I'm going to need you 30 hours a week. Until we get the offer, and it's like, all right, now who's my, front person, like, so that I can text you all night.
I see you trying to jump in.
Yeah, I've been listening. So I do have so I think that listening to what everybody said, the things that I think have moved me over the other way in terms of my preference are thinking about the fact that this person or team will be representing us to candidates. So I was thinking about like, who would I want to interact with? And I think sometimes a touchy-feely board that has a tough time making a decision might benefit from having somebody who's confident and like, we just need to keep going. But the candidate side of it, I think, is important, and that's different. And also I'm not an East Coaster, but I felt at home in the East Coast in a way I don't feel at home in the Midwest in the way people communicate. But that's me. I like directness. And I did appreciate the point Dharma made that with the references, ultimately Bradbury Miller delivered the work in terms of bringing a diverse pool of candidates. So they can do it. We know they can do it. They've done it. And however the interview went, like, they have the record of actually doing the work, and that's really important in hiring. And so I think that's really persuasive. In addition, Molly and Jamie's insights about their perception of the ALA and sort of the library professional world was very helpful to think about and tap into their experience. Yeah, so that I'll leave it at that. I think all those things put together, I think, push me over the line. And like the time commitment thing is a giant red flag, and it was the obvious one. And I think I may have wanted to dig a little deeper into that if I had, like, we hadn't had the deliberation here. But at this point, I think I'm kind of firmly moved my preference if we were going to have a vote. And I think I would probably vote for either one, because I think either one could do the job. Yeah.
So, I mean, the other question is, like, we do not have to decide this week right now. But the next opportunity, I'm sorry, what, Jamie?
I think we should, but let's decide.
Okay.
I think,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm not
I'm
getting
just
the sense
saying,
that we need more time, really.
If there's
I don't
more
know.
like data collection that needs to be done, we could
well,
open
and,
the.
you know, as the other June Garcia person, like I said from the start, like I think both would be good, and I am concerned about the time commitment thing, and if everybody's leaning towards Bradbury Miller, like that, I feel really good about that decision. Like, you know, I feel good about them too, and I will say also, as like a Midwest and East Coast person, I think maybe I just didn't think about that piece of it, and maybe that I just like, yeah, I like the bluntness. It makes me feel secure. But that's neither, but I also see the other side of like that we're a Midwest library and they're a Midwest firm, and there's something about that feels like a good fit. So I don't feel like, given how everybody's feeling about it, I don't think we need to delay deciding, personally.
Okay. So give me just one moment here. We have drafts. I have drafts of resolutions somewhere.
They were all attached to the email from Karen.
Karen, yeah. I'm just trying to find them. So we have a draft for each possible outcome. And if someone wants to read the resolution in favor of Bradbury Miller, if they can find it in their inbox, because I
have it.
Thank you. Would you read that resolution, whoever that is, Molly?
Hi, yep.
Thank you.
The board resolves, 1, to engage the firm of Bradbury Miller Associates, 3513 East Harvard Boulevard, Canton, Ohio, to coordinate and assist the Ann Arbor District Library Board of Trustees in the search for a library director as outlined in their proposal of September 8th, 2021. 2, that a retainer of $6,000 be paid in advance with balance of the $24,000 flat fee paid within 30 days of a selected candidate's acceptance of the library's offer of employment. 3, to authorize Jim Leha, AADL board president, to approve the contract with Bradbury Miller Associates. 4, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
Second.
Great. Corrine, so that served as a motion, Molly, thank you. Corrine has seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I feel good about this. I think they're going to help guide us in a way that's going to help a lot.
I agree. All right. Let's have a vote then.
Okay, Trustee Ekman,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Congratulations, everyone. We did it. That is a very big first step in a long process with many, many other big steps to follow. But I appreciate all your thoughtfulness in the conversation today, your time. I also want to give special thanks to Dharma and Jamie for running ahead with the client references. Such valuable information to have. Thank you so much. Now that we have passed the resolution, I will reach out to Bradbury Miller directly I'm looking at my crazy calendar, which does not allow me to spend 30 hours on this this week. But I'll be trying to reach out to them tomorrow as soon as I possibly can, and then I'll let you all know of the result. I do plan to ask who the principal will be, and what we can expect in terms of administrative support as we move along. And then I think we'll be launching very quickly into our discovery phase. And I will say that it could be possible that we'll have a conversation with them right away at our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight. And that everyone should be already thinking about how to answer some of these questions around what it is that we're looking for, and how to communicate that, because they will definitely be looking. I suspect they'll want to talk to each of us individually as well. And like what you would like to see personally as forms of staff and community engagement on the front end of this process. Any other questions or things that that you want me to ask as I call them tomorrow?
One question I have, I mean, June kind of answered this without us asking, is like, what is their idea of what the timeline would be?
Mm-hmm. Make note of that.
And obviously they might need to talk to us before they can answer that, because it depends on what we want them to do up front and how long each of those things takes, right? But that would be helpful, and like knowing kind of which parts are more labor intensive for us. Obviously the interview process will be, but the other sort of stages.
Perfect. I also just want to note, because we are talking about the 22nd and another visit with Bradbury Miller, that I may not be able to be at the meeting on the 22nd, and so we'll talk about quorum and who's going to chair that meeting. We'll figure that out, but I just want to let everyone know, just kind of why I'm priming you. Dharma, what was your?
Well, I did just want to chime in to say that like they did put a time frame in their bid, and they also said that they are our staff team during this process. So anyway, I'm not saying you shouldn't ask, but just to
just to reaffirm.
Yeah, exactly.
Hard to set sort of our expectation for support.
Totally.
All right. I think that takes us to citizens' comments. Is that true?
It does, and we have two.
All right.
All right. The first one is from Lisa Nichols, and that one was submitted on September 30th. And her comment reads, "Hello, I have two comments. First, congratulations to Josie, and thanks for her years of inspiring leadership. Second, regarding COVID policy, I know you are in a challenging situation, but there is a problem with the current mask policy. It states that masks are required, but that policy is not enforced. I'm told it's the policy not to enforce it, nor even to ask patrons to comply, making it more of a suggestion, as one library worker told me. Clearly, people are catching on that they can ignore the requirement, as more and more are unmasked as time goes on. But, and this is in parentheses, but the spread rate does not go down. Last time I visited my branch, hoping to sit and write and read, I could not find an open table or desk that wasn't within 8 feet of someone unmasked. If masks are only suggested and not required, the policy should say that they are suggested, not that they are required. Folks who currently want I can't pronounce that word, policy to be enforced should know upfront that it won't be. That in fact, it isn't really the policy at all, and that the signs indicating it are, thus providing incorrect information to the public. Thank you." The second.
Josie, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, I will. It is incorrect to state that the signs say one thing and the internal policy is different. That is not so. If that was said that way to that patron, we apologize. We have asked the staff in writing and in Zooms to do their best to enforce the mask required policy without engaging in confrontational behavior with anyone. This is a difficult situation. We've tried to avoid it all through this, and we aren't able to completely do that now. When a person is in the library without a mask and a staff person is within the vicinity, they are to ask that person to pull their mask up. Usually the mask is pulled down, to pull their mask up or to wear a mask, and then to keep moving along, to not stand and engage and stare and wait like you're punishing or wreaking retribution on someone. Just to make the statement and move along. When someone is too close to others without a mask, we do ask them to complete their business at the library if they're not going to wear a mask and move along. We do have some people who categorically refuse, and those people are told, please complete your business and move along. This is not straightforward. This is not one way or the other. And for those persons who come in the library who want it to be, it's a disappointment. But it is right now, I think, the most effective way of handling this is to address it with people who are not wearing a mask or who have dropped their masks, but to not engage in confrontational behavior. And not putting people at risk is super important on both sides of this. We ask the public to not engage other people, to let us know that there are concerns, and then we will handle it. Sometimes that's difficult as well, but masks are required. We are doing our best to make that requirement stick, but you can walk into any library in the system and see a person with the mask down, or a person pulling their holes or sitting at a cafe table and not be wearing a mask. That is true. But the policy is that we ask people to wear masks.
Josie, can I ask you a question?
That's why I brought my face up on this one.
I just wondered, like, now that we're kind of coming back around to this, like, it sounds like this is one comment that we've gotten, but I haven't otherwise heard a lot of chatter or noise. You haven't brought us chatter about it. Do you need support from us, like on this issue?
This particular individual asked that this be read at the next board meeting, and that is what we're doing. For the most part, it's a very small amount of anxiety that we're seeing from people, or questions about why isn't everyone wearing a mask. I think that it's obvious we're trying to enforce the policy. We're all wearing them. Everyone on staff is wearing them all the time. And I'll say this about Ann Arbor and its community. Most people come in here wearing a mask, or they have it hooked on their ear and then they pull it on when they get in the door, or they pull it up, or if we ask them to, they put it on. It's a very small number of people in the scheme of things who are just looking straight at us and saying not wearing a mask. And then we say, please take care of your library business as quickly as you can, move on. That is what we've asked of staff. I'm hoping that that's what's happening everywhere. But I can tell you the way that we talked about this in a Zoom meeting with many of the people who work the desk, if you see a person without a mask walking through the library, when you're walking through, ask them to please put it on their face and keep moving, so that we don't engage in some sort of controversy. I think the most part that's happening.
I just want to compliment the staff on doing this hard work. And I just want to say, like, the library does not live in some magical fantasy land. It lives in the state of Michigan, where there is no mask mandate. And there will likely never be again. And
Right.
we are doing our very best to keep our community safe, but also to keep our workers safe. And if there's one thing that COVID has taught us, I mean, it's taught us a lot of things. It's that being a frontline worker who does customer service work with the public is undervalued, it's dangerous, and it's hard.
Thank
And
you,
we
Jim.
have to thank our staff for doing the very best that they can.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have another comment, Karen?
We do.
Wait for
One,
it.
okay, one comment received tonight. The final one was Jock Betancourt. And he says, hear me out, librarians in space, mind blown emoji. And he wanted that read to the board.
I think that might have been referring to June's background, which I really appreciated. She was in outer space.
Was.
Well, thanks for reading those comments, Karen. Thanks to all of you. This has been an exceptionally meaty meeting and a long one. I want to just congratulate everyone again for pulling through. I'm really excited about the direction that we're headed and the result that we've landed on. I'm looking forward to a really productive search process ahead. Please enjoy your evening. And gosh, is it only Monday? I guess it is.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great week. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you all.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.